Thanks, Kevin. Decisiveness means I'm sometimes have a potty mouth, so I'm trying my best to control all of that. And it is my pleasure to be here today, and thanks for the opportunity. It's one thing to keep somebody from lunch, it's another thing to keep them from a glass of wine. So we'll zip through this fairly quickly. And I did grow up on a Angus and dairy operation just south of town, so it is in my blood, and it is my pleasure. For those that aren't familiar with Alma, I'm going to just take a quick step back and say in 2008 the Department of Agriculture decided to do something different and bold considering the state of the industry post-BSE. And so they came up with Alma, and I was the first employee that responded to an ad. I do drink this stuff. I have the Alma tattoo. Since that time, we have survived. We are a provincial government agency. We have survived 2 premiers, 2 elections, and 4 ag ministers. And a remarkable task for a little agency that likes to keep under the radar, but somehow became a wedge issue this last time. So if you maybe heard of Alma before, our budget and carbon capture and the $2 billion there, we're going to solve all the problems of the budget in the province. So we truly have survived to be where we're at today. And I think one of the big things that we did in that survival was in part because we have engaged the industry, we have built partnerships, and we have gained the industry's trust. And in the process, over 3 years, and the first programs of Alma were launched in April of 2009 when I started, over $110 million has been invested to support the livestock and meat sector in the province. And we have leveraged that to with $374 million. And it's one thing to be tasked with that. It's another thing to actually get it out the door with a skeleton crew. And so there have been several transformations in Alma and staffing. All of this, keep in mind, happened when there was a hiring freeze and a budget freeze all at the same time. So it's been a monumental task, and one filled with passion and adoration as well. Just to give you an idea of what Alma does invest in, we run 5 different programs. 2 of them are related to Ag Canada's Growing Forward initiative. So in lean manufacturing and equipment grants, we have one of those, as well as marketing initiative. We have Industry Development Fund that supports marketing, education, awareness. We also have a $10 million research fund and a small pool of funds that I direct called strategic. So when we get into some of the funds, you'll see how we differentiate them. But the SI funds that I manage kind of are the catch-all basin for what we think are really important initiatives in the province, like sterile manufacturing for generic drugs and pharmaceuticals that don't quite fit other areas of our programming. There's 2 additional funds that we are also managing, both that have allocated funds and unallocated dollars. We in our birth, killed 2 other previous funds called the Alberta Livestock Industry Development Fund and Diversified Livestock Fund of Alberta. So we continue to manage those and are allocating the leftover funds from those. But from 2000, just this past fiscal year, you can see we invested just over $30 million. $45 million was matched from industry for a total investment purpose of over $125 million. And in that, we are now managing 197 initiatives just this year alone. Gives you a different breakdown just to get a feel how those dollars have been leveraged through the different groups as well. The commercialization area is that lean manufacturing fund, so where processors can apply for 20% of the funds. That's an easy leverage right there, and is probably the most significant fund that we have to leveraging. It also has very profound effects for the industry as well. What we've been able to do just in this last year's investments is increase the processing capacity both at the primary and at secondary level to increase the capacity of 43 million kilograms of beef and meat products in the province. Additionally, because of one single investment that we have in moving a specialty cheese operation from Montreal to Diamond City, which is a little community north of Lethbridge, we now are able to produce more than 42 million liters of milk in the province also. On the research side, and this is an area that I started in before I was promoted a year after, on the research area, we have now supported more than 76 graduate students, 35 postdoctoral, and 53 technicians. In that short period of time, it says 15, but we haven't been able to truly quantify how many peer-reviewed articles have come out. We're also tracking patents and other measurements to look at the impact of the research investment. On the product and marketing side, we've added 45 different products and entered 6 new international markets because of our investments also. And I'm going to start with just a few highlights to give you the scope of initiatives that we deal with, starting with the biggest and down to the smallest. Is XL Lakeside and Brooks is one of the 2 world-class beef processing operations that we have in Alberta. And outside of their operation, they had a water pond that was in disastrous effects. Heavily polluted, all sorts of issue with wastewater and salt content as well. And so it was in needing of dramatic rejuvenation. We worked through an investment with the processors, and it's made a monumental difference actually in what's happened in that area, to the point that XL now has 2 new issues that they have to deal with. One is the water is so pure that the freshwater shrimp are now clogging their filters going into it. And secondly, fish and beaver have now moved into it and are adding an additional issue to that water pond. David Bressler is an esteemed researcher at the University of Alberta and manages the bioconversion, the technology network there. I've actually had the opportunity to champion this initiative for several years now, going back to when I was working with the Alberta Agriculture Research Institute. And initial investments following NRC investments took lipid to hydrocarbon pyrolysis technology now to the scale-up. And just last month, Western Economic Diversification and myself actually made an announcement where Alma was in for $891,522 and WD was in for $970,000 on an initiative that's quantifies more than $2.5 million. And as Dr. Kehoe talked about earlier, some of that sludge and SRM issue that we have to deal with in the province, well, 3 components of SRMs are water, tallow, and protein. And we've been involved with APRI and some of those other ones, but it was the direction that the tallow will go to the lipid to hydrocarbon. And the interesting thing there is not only do you get biodiesel as a product, but there are a number of bolt-on technologies that the industry collaborator who's in for 300 cash on that one also is responsible for. And through the market assessment, they'll choose those final ones, which are now being courted and have interest from internationally esteemed beauty care, aroma, fragrance companies, as well as a suite of other chemical products that are of interest to the industry in the province. We've worked with Dr. Glenn Caitler at SAIT on RFID technology. And so traceability in Alberta is important, not only from a market access, but also livestock and animal management capability. And so Dr. Caitlin is a Canada Research Chair in RFID technology and has received more than $5 million from various funders. So we came in with a real need from the livestock side saying, can you create a second generation of RFID technology? And so he and his collaborators received just under $1 million from Alma to work on that specific initiative and are now in field testing trials to deliver on that. Something that will help, again, transform the livestock sector. Dr. Wishart this morning talked on Dr. Stéphane Evoy's platform technology looking at bacteriophage as a new diagnostics tool. There are a suite of diseases that we would like to see addressed in the province, not only from the food safety but animal production aside as well. And so he and his colleagues are working on what is a Mycobacterium tuberculosis, or Johne's disease initiative, and that has learnings and application through not only the human side but an international realm also. And so we do play in the entire nano suite and into that area also, as well as large multinational processors. And finally, I wanted to talk about PRRS suite of initiatives that we're also doing. PRRS is a $2 billion disease in the pork industry that affects reproduction respiratory syndromes as well. And the interesting thing there is that from a national initiative taken by the Canadian Swine Health Board, they identified PRRS and circovirus as their two main diseases that they wanted to address and potentially eliminate in a period of 5 years. And so we have come in with a suite of directives to try and address that. One of them is in the Northern Alberta eradication opportunity to pilot that and to potentially create a PRRS-free zone in Alberta for the pork sector. On the research side, in vaccine development, we're looking at everything from an initiative led by Dr. Marcus Zub at the University of Calgary that includes Aquila Diagnostics at the ACAMP camp in creating a new diagnostics tool for that, or a delivery mechanism for that and diagnostics, but also in that using the kinome technology developed by Dr. Scott Napper at University of Saskatchewan also, as well as Volker Gertz and his crew at WCVM. So we are able to transcend not only provinces, but the whole spectrum of trying to deal with it right from the farm, right into the lab to commercialization. I just wanted to touch on a couple priority areas. One of them would be actually the One Health Roadmap, a new view, which Alma launched at a National Food Safety Forum in January. This is an area, of course, where you have convergence of not only food safety and animal health, human health, but also the ecosystem interaction. And so this will be a priority area for Alma. This ties into the food safety call that we're involved in with Alberta Innovates Biosolutions and Health Solutions also. But touches on a spectrum of priority funding areas that we're involved in. And the second is our own Food and Health Innovation Roadmap that talks about the characterization opportunities still in beef, but also the educational awareness that is needed not only from the consuming side, but also in the policy area. And we were recently, as a matter of fact, last week, involved in the International Congress for fatty acid and lipid research in Vancouver, and there's a whole community now looking at the difference between industrially produced trans fats and natural trans fats. So those that are produced by beef and or dairy that contain high levels of one of those single trans fats called vicenic now have demonstrated through clinical trials the potential to be everything from neutral to health beneficial in humans and in combating both obesity and diabetes symptoms. So we are supportive of that kind of work, the workshop there, but not only that, working now at an international consortium as well as with Health Canada, potentially change the trans fatty acid policy in Canada. So that's just a snapshot of some of the things that Alma is doing, and happy to stay around and address any questions that you might have.
Mr. Brett?
With the new premier in place and the new ag minister, are you getting any different signals in terms of direction that you may be going in the coming months?
Larry's question was with a new premier and ag minister, is there any change in it? As a matter of fact, during the campaign, I think it was May 18, the premier came out and endorsed Alma and said there are potential for us to transform the industry and reach markets, and so she is very supportive. The new ag minister met with our Alma board last week also in his first external from the House. Met with our board also and is also very supportive. We don't see any change, Larry, in our budget. We don't see much change in the direction. Our board is up for review, as well as Alma is, as well as all boards and agencies and commissions after its first 5-year mandate. So that will be next year, and we're open to any nuances, but happily we just passed our 3rd Auditor General report with a very clean report also. So we're trying to keep our noses clean and keep delivering results.